everyone, my name's Chelsea, and for my project I decided to teach myself how to make a yarn wrapped painted jar, which could be beautiful to decorate your house or your room or even give as a present. I decided to do this because I myself am a very crafty person, but it's so simple that you don't even need to be crafty and it's only a few steps. So before we get started, you'll need a list of materials, which are the following. Glass jars, as many as you want to make, it's as many as you buy. Yarn or string, it doesn't matter which kind or color, it's up to you. Spray paint, I used white flat, but you could use any color you prefer. Newspaper for covering your surface when you make them. A candle for inside once it's complete. Scissors for cutting the string. And a lighter for when your candle's done. Once you have all your materials, you want to prepare the jars for painting. So if they have any stickers or anything on them, you want to make sure they're completely cleaned. Mine didn't have any stickers on the jar, but if they do, you take a bucket of water, just filled up a little, the stickers on the bottom, and you submerge your jar into it. And you would let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then once the 3 to 5 minutes is up, you take your jar and you slowly slide off the sticker and make sure all the glue is off with it. And if that doesn't work, I would try it for another minute or two. And if that still doesn't work, you could buy glue gun, which you could just apply to it and it will take it off. But you again would want to wash it to make sure that there's nothing left, because you want a totally clean and glue gun jar before you start painting. So once you do that, you would dry your jar completely. And then the next step is tying the yarn onto your jar. Our next step is cutting the piece of yarn that you're going to tie on your jar. So depending on the size of your jar, I guess would be how long you need it, but then again, I just cut a huge long string because you'd rather have more yarn than run out and need to cut a new piece and do it over. So there's no exact size you need it, but I just cut a very long piece. And then what I found useful for myself is I took a little piece of tape, just scotch tape, whatever, and allowed a little room at the top, and then I actually taped it down at the top so that I have my piece where I'll tie it at the end and I don't have to hold it the whole entire time. And then this part's up to you. You just design how you want your jar to look. Wrap it one more time so it's up here. And then you take where you taped it, this starting piece and your ending piece. And you could take your tape off now if you used it. And you just tie it in a small knot so it stays in place like that. And then with this extra string you're going to have up here, could be shorter, could be longer, you're just going to want to cut it off. So now you have a jar wrapped in yarn, however you want to design it, however much you want. And now we're on to our next step of preparing to paint it. So since we're using spray paint and that's not good to spray inside, I found that's most useful to do it either outside or in a garage area. So I chose outside, and to prepare, you want to lay down a newspaper or paper that you don't care to throw out or ruined, and put 4 things on the corners so it doesn't fly up, just like this. And once you do that, we get to start painting. So once you're all set up, you're ready to start painting, and you want to put your jar face down so that paint doesn't get on the inside. Shake your can a little. Test it out. You let it dry for about 5 to 10 minutes, and you're going to come back and do another 2 to 3 coats. Before you get to the final step of removing the yarn, you want to make sure your jar is dry completely, or else when you take the yarn off, the design is going to get messed up, and that's the whole point of the craft. So once your jar is completely done, it's time to cut the string off. So I had prepared a jar last night to have dry, since the other one can take a few minutes or hours, depends on the temperature it's sitting in to dry. So you'll see that there's a bunch of like the fuzzy fibers from the yarn, but that's not going to really affect your design. So what you want to do is find where you have the knot and snip the yarn off there. Be careful, you don't want to really scratch your jar that much with your scissor. And then you want to peel it off very slowly because you don't want to take too much of the paint off. And then you'll see as it's unraveling that there are just keep unraveling until all your yarn is off. And you see how there's those lines from your yarn that didn't get the paint. And now, our final step of putting the candle in. So I bought a candle about this size. You could buy a smaller one, a bigger one, a colored one. It's really up to you. But all you're going to do is place it in the middle of your jar, light it, and let me give you a better vision. And here's your finished product, your yarn wrapped painted jar.